It's absurd for anyone to insinuate that this president is profiting off of the presidency. This president was incredibly successful before giving it all up to serve our country publicly.
This, but we'll give Trump credit. The big grift has reached unprecedented heights in what the New York Times describes as an astonishing escalation of the Trump family's efforts to profit from crypto.
Donald Trump ha quedado expuesto tras un error crítico de su secretaria de prensa, Caroline Leavitt. Señores, esta administración nos ha demostrado que convirtieron la mentira en una estrategia de gobierno. Lo han hecho tan bien que sus aliados en el Congreso, en su gabinete y, como vemos, hasta su personal de comunicación, al parecer han sido entrenados para mentir sin pestañear. Literalmente, amigos, frente a las cámaras, en público y con total seguridad. Seguridad de que no habrá consecuencias. Donald Trump nunca ha tenido que rendir cuentas, ni por sus fraudes, ni por sus cargos criminales, ni por haber destrozado cada norma presidencial existente. Todo esto nos lleva a esta noticia de último momento, porque lo que acaba de hacer su vocera en la Casa Blanca, Caroline Leavitt, es simplemente increíble. Y todo esto gira en torno a una pregunta tan sencilla sobre transparencia. Algo tan básico, amigos. Al menos cuando estás hablando del hombre que ocupa el cargo más poderoso del planeta. Antes de mostrarles esta respuesta insólita, tenemos que recordar que todo esto también tiene que ver con cómo Trump ha usado la presidencia para llenarse los bolsillos. Literalmente. Y escuchemos este clip.
It's absurd for anyone to insinuate that this president is profiting off of the presidency. This president was incredibly successful before giving it all up to serve our country publicly.
This, but we'll give Trump credit. The big grift has reached unprecedented heights in what the New York Times describes as an astonishing escalation of the Trump family's efforts to profit from crypto.
And not only has he lost wealth, but he also almost lost his life. He has sacrificed a lot to be here.
President Trump is on his way back from visiting 3 Middle Eastern nations where the Trump family has deep business ties.
Over the past month, billions of dollars have poured into Trump-owned companies, reviving a long-standing ethical debate from his first term. Are the president's financial windfalls for his businesses influencing government policy?
President Trump is on his way back from visiting 3 Middle Eastern nations where the Trump family has deep business ties.
It's a region where the president's political and personal interests increasingly overlap.
And to suggest otherwise is frankly completely absurd.
Algunos defensores de Trump todavía repiten que él donó su salario como presidente, ¿no? Como si eso lo haya hecho un santo. Pero claro, se les olvida que eso es nada comparado con los cientos de millones de dólares que ha ganado aprovechando este puesto. Y ojo, ¿no? Cuando todo esto termine, no nos va ni sorprender si es que se acerca al billón de dólares en ganancias. Así que no, amigos, no le vamos a aplaudir por devolver su sueldo mientras convierte cada día al gobierno en una operación de lucro personal. Ahora sí, vamos a los que nos trae hoy. La portavoz de la Casa Blanca, Caroline Leavitt, ha sido cuestionada sobre algo tan simple como la transparencia de ciertas reuniones y viajes, ¿no? Y bueno, su respuesta, mejor véanlo ustedes mismos.
On the president's dinner tonight, will the White House commit to making a list of the attendees public so people can see who's paying for that kind of access to the president?
Well, as you know, Garrett, this question has been raised with the president. I have also addressed the dinner tonight. The president is attending it in his personal time. It is not a White House dinner. It's not taking place here at the White House. But certainly I can raise that question and try to get you an answer for it.
Así que es su tiempo privado, ¿no? ¿Que acaso esto no tiene nada que ver con su rol en la Casa Blanca? A ver, por un momento pensemos. Si el presidente no está oficialmente de vacaciones, no existe el tiempo privado, ¿cierto? Al menos cuando se trata de su función pública. Además de que existen reglas muy claras sobre conflictos de intereses. Acceso privilegiado. Y lo que se conoce como pagar para jugar.
But if you think accepting that flatly unconstitutional multi-million-dollar personal gift from the Qataris was audacious, wait until you hear about Trump's dinner plans for tonight. Right now, as I'm speaking to you at this hour, with protesters outside, the most brazen act of corruption by a president in our lifetimes, probably in a century, possibly ever, is going down in Northern Virginia right now. They're not really hiding it so much. You could call it the Met Gala of presidential pay for play. Now, of course, we are used to hearing about fancy gala dinners where politicians rub elbows with their top campaign donors who are donating, often specifically so they can be near those politicians. And unfortunately, that's become part and parcel of our political system, and I think people view it with a jaundiced eye, understandably. This is not that. Really can't stress that enough. This is just totally at another level, an entirely different stratosphere of corruption. A, quote, unforgettable gala dinner with the president at his 800-acre Trump National Golf Resort in Potomac Falls, Virginia, for a very exclusive group.
220 winners of a contest to meet President Trump, the top holders of his crypto coin.
I don't know much about it other than I launched it. I heard it was very successful.
NBC News has learned each dinner guest paid between $55,000 and $37.7 million for the Trump coin.
Now, remember, the day before becoming president, Trump, day before inauguration, launched this meme coin, right? It's the Trump coin. And then this whole dinner thing was announced first back in April. It was at www.gettrumpmemes.com. The president's meme coin sought investors who would pour untraceable cash into his crypto wallet. And the top 220 got an invite to tonight's dinner. Black tie optional. For the top 25 Trump meme coin holders, there was an exclusive reception with the president before dinner. All told, in order to get in tonight's gala, the winning guests forked out a total of nearly $400 million, according to NBC News. This was essentially an open advertised competition to see who would pay the biggest literal tribute to Donald Trump's crypto coin. And because of the way this meme coin works, which is issued by Trump and whose purchase always sends money to the company that he's part of, this is really not functionally different than if those guests showed up with satchels of cash or briefcases with stacks of bills and then just dumped all that into a big bucket physically held by the President of the United States.
Well, the website for the contest says that the president is appearing at the dinner as a guest and not soliciting any funds for it. Another site says that 80% of the Trump coin project is owned by two companies affiliated or in business with Trump.
Again, as Trump said, I launched the coin, right? These are Trump businesses. Again, now, if these were campaign donations, the level of the donations and the people donating would make this just an absolute facial violation of every campaign finance law ever. But again, it's even worse than that. This is not going towards Donald Trump's political campaigns or, his super PAC. No. This is just money in the president's business empire. And when asked, the White House keeps saying that Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is not attending this dinner where he will make millions of dollars, not as president, but in his personal capacity.
On the president's dinner tonight, will the White House commit to making a list of the attendees public so people can see who's paying for that kind of access to the president?
Well, as you know, Garrett, this question has been raised with the president. I have also addressed the dinner tonight. The president is attending it in his personal time. It is not a White House dinner. It's not taking place here at the White House.
So that's a no, I think, on the list of attendees. You don't really have to understand crypto to see how this works. You just need to understand people like Justin Sun, okay? Here's just one example. Justin Sun's a Chinese-born crypto billionaire whose company has been a popular way to move money for crypto's criminal underbelly. And for years, Justin Sun wouldn't even set foot in the U.S. for fear of arrest, according to reporting from the Wall Street Journal. Also, he was under investigation by the Department of Justice and the Treasury, as well as a lawsuit that was filed by the SEC. But guess where Sun is tonight?
Really nice to be be here today with like everybody in the crypto to witness this great moment of crypto. And the president will be on the stage later. So, see you.
See you, Justin. He's there tonight. In fact, in addition to being the top Trump coin investor, Sun also went in with the Trump family on a separate investment last year. And all told, he has sunk at least $93 million into Trump crypto ventures, according to CNBC. And would you believe, this is really going to come as a shock, in February, right after Trump took office, wouldn't you know, the SEC asked a court to pause its lawsuit against Sun. So it had filed a lawsuit in the previous administration, and then Sun went into business in crypto with Trump, and then Trump got elected, and then a few weeks later, the SEC is like, we want to pause this lawsuit. Now, instead of quietly counting his blessings for appearing to have successfully wriggled out what could have been some legal trouble, Sun tweeted that he was Trump's top meme coin donor. What's the emoji for a victory laugh? Now, we only know Sun is at tonight's gala because he bragged about it. In fact, the identities of most of the other contest winners are largely private. They use pseudonyms to purchase their Trump meme coins. But, and this is really important, a majority of the attendees appear to be foreign nationals, according to Molly White, an independent crypto researcher who has written about the contest. Again, foreigners cannot legally donate to an actual U.S. campaign. In normal times, the Department of State is in charge of stopping and sanctioning foreigners who donate to American political campaigns. But as Secretary of State Marco Rubio made clear this week, we're not in normal times.
Do you have a list of those foreign individuals who will be meeting with the president?
I don't. I don't know anything about it. I didn't even know there was a dinner.
It is likely going to involve some very significant foreign interests. You have to be pretty wealthy in order to be able to get inside this dinner. Isn't that a relevant question for the Secretary of State?
Yeah, I'm not the social
Which foreign
secretary,
interests are going to be speaking to the president? I mean, it's kind of naive to believe that they aren't going to be in that room talking about national security matters.
Well, I don't think that that's the case at all, because I would be aware if it was the case.
Oh, well, that's a pretty good tautological reasoning. They won't be because I would be aware of it if that were the case, and I'm not aware of it, therefore they won't be. Just the President of the United States being a guest at a dinner where a bidding war helped decide who gets invited based on how much untraceable cash they forked over to Donald Trump's meme coin. A crypto scheme that, according to estimates, has enabled him to make hundreds of millions of dollars off of being president in just a few months. For Donald Trump, regaining the presidency was always fundamentally, I think, about two things. One, most crucially, avoiding jail for the many crimes that he was indicted for, and making as much money as he can. And we've known that for a long time. But the audacity and the scale of his profiteering can still be managed to be shocking.
Recordemos que a Obama le hicieron un escándalo solo por usar un traje color beige. Ah, pero a Trump se le perdona, ¿no? Cosas como vender criptomonedas memes, firmar contratos multimillonarios para jets, o al parecer cerrar tratos hoteleros en Vietnam mientras aplica tarifas usando el peso de su cargo. Así que no, señores, esto no es transparencia. Y bueno, amigos, en otra jugada por parte de esta administración, tenemos que ver este nuevo capítulo en la eterna guerra de Trump y las universidades de élite en Estados Unidos. Bueno, en específico, como lo hemos visto anteriormente, contra Harvard, la cual ha sido sancionada por negarse a entregar ciertos datos al Departamento de Seguridad Nacional. Y bueno, como represalia le prohíben admitir estudiantes internacionales. Un ataque que a todas luces parece más como un acto de venganza, ¿no? Al menos que no sea una medida legítima de seguridad nacional. No necesitan creerme a mí, vamos a ver un fragmento de esta noticia. Escuchemos.
Escalation this afternoon in the Trump administration's war against Harvard University. The New York Times is now reporting that the White House halted Harvard University's ability to admit international students after Harvard refused to turn over detailed records about its student body. The New York Times writes this, quote, "The administration notified Harvard about the decision after a back and forth in recent days over the legality of a sprawling records request as part of the Department of Homeland Security's investigation. That's according to 3 people with knowledge of the negotiations. For international students already enrolled at Harvard University, this marks a threat to their ability to study in the United States at all. In a release from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem writes this, quote, existing foreign students must transfer or lose their legal status. It is a privilege, not a right, for universities to enroll foreign students. Harvard had plenty of opportunity to do the right thing. It refused. They have lost their student and exchange visitor program certification as a result of their failure to adhere to the law. Let this serve as a warning to all universities and academic institutions across the country, end quote. Harvard responding in a statement, quote, the government's action is unlawful. This retaliatory action threatens serious harm to the Harvard community and our country and undermines Harvard's academic and research mission. Joining our coverage is New York Times investigative reporter Mike Schmidt, whose byline is on that reporting we read from. Mike, let me start with Harvard's response. Is any of this legal?
Well, we don't know. Harvard's going to have to go to court to fight this. And it's going to open up a whole nother legal front in their battle with the administration. And it underscores something that officials at Harvard have come to appreciate and understand, that the school is in a is in a crisis. The school is truly in a crisis because they have lost a major amount of their funding from the federal government. And even if they succeed in court in getting that funding back, the administration can still use, or at least try to use, the levers of the federal government against them to try to harm them, as they have done here today. And maybe they're able to go to court and to get some sort of resolution about this. But if you're an international student at Harvard today, you got a clear message from the Department of Homeland Security, which was either transfer or leave the country. And what's remarkable about all of this is that about a little bit more than 25% of all the students at Harvard are international students. So that means a quarter of the students for the academic year starting in the end of August, the beginning of September, may not be at Harvard because of this, or at least today, their status about whether they can go to school is in question. And not only is that obviously a big issue for those students who are just trying to make their way through college or postgraduate studies, but it's a big question for Harvard's bottom line because of the amount of money that these students pay to the school. So Harvard, this is just another front that Harvard faces in its fight with the administration.
The fight with Harvard seems so deeply personal and clear retribution for fighting and not coming in and doing what you described as a true social deal that the law firms went in and did, that Trump and his lawyer Boris Epstein hammered out. I mean, what is it that makes this stop?
I don't know. The thing about Harvard that you have to understand is that it's different than the law firms. The law firms who wanted to fight went to court and quickly got judges to give them injunctions, restraining orders, temporary restraining orders to stop the executive orders. And those law firms, as much as we can tell, were able to continue on with their work. The difference about Harvard is that half of their research budget is tied to money from the federal government. So that in and of itself created a huge question about where is that research money going to come from, not just for this year, but in future years. And research is something that researchers would like some certainty about. They would not like to be thinking, oh, where is my money going to be in a year or two for this long-term study into things like cancer.
Things like cancer. I want to ask you where all of these, a lot of them are scientists, a lot of them are working on research projects into things like cancer.
Ok, amigos. ¿En qué universo tiene sentido que una universidad pierda el derecho a recibir estudiantes extranjeros simplemente por negarse a entregar datos sensibles de su comunidad académica? Pues aquí estamos hablando de información privada, estudiantes que confiaron en esta institución para proteger su identidad, su privacidad y su estadía legal. Lo que estamos viendo no es política migratoria, amigos, es un acto de coerción institucional. Y es que con Trump esto ya es costumbre. Cualquier entidad que no quiera alinearse en esta narrativa de se convierte en enemigo del Estado, ¿Te opones? Te sanciono. ¿No me das lo que quiero? Te humillo públicamente. En este caso, Harvard se ha convertido en este chivo expiatorio perfecto. Una universidad progresista, liberal e influyente. Justo el tipo de institución que al trumpismo le encanta atacar. Ahora sé que algunos dirán, bueno, si no entregaron los datos, algo ocultan. Las leyes son las leyes. Amigos, eso es simplificar todo a blanco y negro. La realidad es que Harvard está en todo su derecho. Es más, casi en su obligación ética de querer proteger la privacidad de sus estudiantes. Especialmente si no existe una orden judicial que sea clara o justificada, ¿no? Porque aquí no estamos hablando de seguridad nacional real, estamos hablando de una represalia política. Además, quitarle a Harvard la posibilidad de admitir estudiantes internacionales, lógicamente, no solo daña a esta institución, porque también está terminando de castigar a miles de jóvenes que ven en esta universidad una oportunidad de oro. Muchos de ellos con becas, con sueños, con proyectos de investigación que ahora se acaban. Y hay un dato que lo dice todo. Más del 25% del alumnado de Harvard es internacional. O sea, amigos, aquí esto no es un golpe simbólico, es un golpe directo a la estructura financiera y académica de una de las universidades más importantes del mundo. Lo que está sucediendo con Harvard es un mensaje de advertencia, dirigida para el resto de universidades o instituciones. O se alinean con las exigencias de Trump o se atienen a las consecuencias. Y eso, amigos, sinceramente es una señal muy, pero muy peligrosa para cualquier democracia. Esto no va solo del tema de Harvard, va de lo que significa estudiar, investigar, pensar con libertad en un país que supuestamente valora la libertad académica, ¿no? Usar el aparato del Estado para castigar disidentes no es nuevo, pero sigue siendo inaceptable. Ahora quiero saber qué opinan ustedes, señores. ¿Creen que Harvard hizo bien en no entregar los datos? ¿Será que Trump se está pasando de la raya? ¿O simplemente está aplicando la ley? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Voy a estar leyéndolos. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, dale like a este video, compártelo con tus amigos y suscríbete a nuestro canal Políticamente Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.